folks. Today's episode is sponsored by my favorite sponsor, SunsetLakeCBD.com. I love this sponsor so much that we're actually going to include this ad for members one time only because we want you guys to know about it. All of Sunset Lake's CBD products are 30% off right now until, November 26th. If you use the coupon code BF. That's for Black Friday, but it also could be like big F and deal. Yeah. And not only that, orders over $125 are going to get to choose one free count to jar gummies. So you can get the sleep gummies with melatonin or the CBD, straight CBD gummies. Or the Vibe gummies that have a little bit of THC and some CBD. Also, orders over $250 will receive a free Sunset Lake CBD beanie. And on top of all of this, 5% of their proceeds from the coupon code BF will go towards Planned Parenthood. A registered 501c3 provides reproductive health care services, sex education, information to millions of people worldwide. You know about that. And on top of that, the Majority Report is going to match their 5%. So this is the time for you, if you've never tried any of the Sunset Lake CBD products, the salves, the lotions, the tinctures, the gummies, the fudge, the coffee, the smokables, the keef, the pre-rolls, all of it. All fantastic products, all no pesticides. They use integrated pest management. They have all of their the contents of their product third-party tested. You can see it on their website. They'll send it to you with your goods. Now is the time to check it out. 30% off, plus all those bonuses, the extra gummies. These actually make really great gifts, incidentally. The stocking stuffers and whatnot. So check it out. SunsetLakeCBD.com. You get 30% off. If your order is $125 or more, you get extra gummies. If it's $250 or more, you get a beanie. And 5% of what you spend is going to go to Planned Parenthood and matched by us.
I wore one of those beanies in today.
There you go. It's getting cold. Sunset Lake CBD's biggest sale of the year ends November 26th. Get on it right now. And speaking of which, now is the time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
And I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Tuesday, November 21st, 2023. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Jacob Sugarman, lifestyle editor at the Buenos Aires Herald and writer at The Nation, on really the disaster that the election was the other day for president of Argentina. Also on the program today, Israel-Hamas hostage deal reportedly imminent. World Health Organization says trauma care no longer possible in the few remaining hospitals in Gaza. This is a war zone, and there's no trauma care. Jeff Merkley, second U.S. Senator to go on record calling for a ceasefire. The 8th Circuit 3-member panel attacks the Voting Rights Act says third parties like voting organizations can no longer protect minority voting rights. MSNBC union finally gets a contract. Wells Fargo employees will vote on a union. And the Wisconsin Supreme Court, new term started yesterday, and now they will hear arguments that could overturn a ridiculously gerrymandered legislative map. Food aid for low-income mothers and children in jeopardy because of this continuing resolution. Elon Musk sues Media Matters for what amounts to, quote, excessive search and refreshing on X, formerly known as Twitter. And Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton literally follows suit. Michigan to transition to 100% clean electricity by 2040 and is doing so in a way that unions can get behind. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is, in fact,
Newsday Tuesday.
Newsday Tuesday.
And you
There
can
it
get
is.
a t-shirt that says that if you go to shop.major... What is it?
Wow. All right. Almost there. That was awesome, actually. That was a great transition. Shop.majorityreportradio.com.
There you go. There you go.
And members, if you're a member of the show, and we're going to do this for if you're a paid AM Quickie subscriber as well. If you're a member, you have received an email. You should have received an email today saying, giving you a special link to a 10% off on all our merch purchases.
Whoa.
Yep. No restrictions apply.
I mean,
There's no terms, no conditions. Just have a good time.
I want... Well, we will. See you at the trail.
On the trail.
Yeah, and that's where you can wear your hoodie or your whoopsie t-shirt, baby.
Yeah, there is a whoopsie t-shirt there.
Yeah.
And that thing. And incidentally, we have completely altered it so that when you look at it, it's completely processed and changes the tone of it.
Anybody, right, we put it through our
filter.
color filter. Anybody who's a good skater should get that merch and do a bunch of tricks and then film it and send it into us, on a ramp or something like that. Do an ollie.
Oh, that would be hilarious.
And wear a
you know what?
Sunset Lake Seder beanie.
I got to get Saul to do that because
Yeah.
I saw that Tim Pool was posting his stuff, and I was like very, very tempted to go like, that's cool. My 10-year-old does that stuff
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
Dad.
Anyway.
Anyways, we have Jacob Sugarman on the program today to talk about the election and their new, chainsaw-wielding president. And really, what will be more relevant is, what he's able to do in terms of austerity and plunging already. 40% of the people are living in poverty in that country. Very difficult situation. We will talk more about that in a bit. Let's get to this first. This was sent to me by a listener. It is or they flagged it for me anyways. You've heard of the New York Times.
Yes.
That is a big newspaper that is more or less supposedly the bottom line when it comes to reporting in this country.
Paper of record.
And
All the news that's fit to print.
And the Daily is their daily podcast. Now, when this was flagged for me, I'm like, that's not really possible. I mean, we have been reporting on this program for about a week. I mean, it's not like we did that much reporting. I saw a clip from Tablet Magazine. We chased it down to make sure that it was real, wasn't made up.
From 2014?
From 2014, that outlined how the tunnel that exists under the Al-Shifa hospital was built by the Israelis. Listen to this.
To the question that we started this conversation with, the question of whether there is proof of the Israeli claim that there is a command center under the hospital, there is more evidence, but it does still seem to stop short of conclusive proof, right?
That's right. Lots of intriguing evidence is coming out. But from a journalistic point of view, if this was a New York Times investigation, our editors would say to us, go back and gather more evidence. This is not the conclusive slam dunk that you're saying that it is. And indeed, that is what our editors are saying right now. We're still saying that this stops short, so far, of conclusive proof of a military command center underneath the hospital.
But is a tunnel with a big metal door that goes down deep into the earth not pretty damning of Hamas, though? I mean, why would there be a tunnel under a hospital at all?
That's a very good question, and one that we're all asking.
Well, let me help you on that answer. Now, listen, I want to make it clear. It's quite possible that Hamas was using this tunnel as a command center. I don't know. I mean, there's absolutely no way for me to know. All we know is that there's no evidence that they were using it this way. But the innuendo that this...
Why would they?
Ironclad door.
Why would there be a metal door? Why would there be a tunnel under a hospital? Who in the world would be so insane to do something like that? I mean, because this is what's been deployed, right? It's not even that the command center means anything.
There's anything in there.
Nobody's made the explicit argument that like somehow this is the sort of the nerve center of all of these incredible sort of like strategic and tactical maneuvers that Hamas is doing. I mean, let's be clear. Like, regardless of how you want to classify this militant organization, this is not like a super high-tech, sophisticated military operation, at least in terms of technology, command and control, because Israel has the ability to monitor all of that.
And by the way, we know just based on the technology of the rockets that they have, especially in comparison to the Air Force, the Navy, the precision-guided missiles that Israel possesses, it's ridiculous. And you can see that, by the way, historically in the death counts, if you want to talk about who's more sophisticated in this instance.
But my point is that when people deploy this thing of like, who would build a command center under a hospital?
What kind
It's not that we need to get, like, it's not that this thing needs to be knocked out because it's going to completely shut down Hamas's ability to operate. No, it is an attempt to create a moral status for people who would build a command center under a hospital. Well, in fact, it was not Hamas that built this. And it's not just that tablet magazine. Here is Christian Amanpour interviewing former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, who was also a general in the military.
Minister, welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Can I just start by asking you what is your view of whether your government, your military, has done a good enough job of proving their claim that there was a major command center and bunker under Al-Shifa?
It's already known for many years that they have in the bunkers that originally was built by Israeli constructors underneath Shifa were used as a command post of the Hamas and a kind of a junction of several tunnels. Part of the system. I don't know to say to what extent it is a major. It's probably not the only kind of command post. Several others are under other hospitals or in other sensitive places, but it's for sure had been used by Hamas even during this conflict.
When you say it was built by Israeli engineers, did you misspeak?
No, decades ago we were running the place. So we held them. It was many decades ago, probably 4 decades ago, that we helped them to build these bunkers in order to enable more space for the operation of the hospital within the very limited size of this compound.
Okay. All right. Well, that's sort of thrown me a little bit. So these were there for a long, long time, but you're claiming, or they're claiming, that they're used as a major command center. Anyway, the fact of the matter is that as yet,
okay. Now the reason why this throws her off so much is because this narrative, and Barack even admits here. Well, I would, command center, that may be a little
Which is now
bit,
in the South.
It may be.
Now they say it's in the South, where they told Gazans to flee, by the way.
Partial command center. That's more like it. But the reason why Amanpour is so thrown off here is because so much of this narrative has been what kind is human shields, right? They use human shields. What's evidence of them using human shields? They literally built a bunker under a hospital. Who would do this?
Savages.
Who would look at a hospital and say, this is a good place for a bunker?
Savages.
And so this is instead what it turns out to be is a pre-existing underground facility. And I still even question, wait a second, you built a bunker underground for more room for the hospital? I'm even questioning why the Israelis did it. But let's just stipulate for a moment that they actually built it because they needed more space.
Or put it aside, say they understand there's violence happening. There are underground tunnels and facilities in many Western hospitals and other areas of the country where it's a place to shelter or a bomb shelter or some place to store extra supplies. These kinds of facilities often have submerged areas, right, and tunnels to get around in case of emergency. It's just but to paint it as nefarious obviously has so many racist implications.
It could be used in that way.
Sure.
But again, the bottom line is that the reason why Amanpour was so literally thrown off by that is that the most important part of this narrative has never been that there's a key command center there, that if we can only knock this out, we're going to debilitate Hamas's ability to operate.
MacGuffin.
No, it has always been a way of showing the moral character and the dynamic of using people as civilians as a shield to justify the continued killing of civilians. That's it. And that'll probably be the last time Barack's on TV, sent out by the Israeli communication, whoever it is.
Yeah.
What kind of preparation does Amanpour do for whatever salary she's pulling from CNN? How do you
that's the question.
To be honest with you, that's that what you're witnessing is, the failure of, there is the failure of sort of the production staff there. She's not, at this point, she's not going to do that. But the idea that there's not even a producer in there or that anybody would even raise this possibility, it's fascinating. And it also gives you an indication of, I don't know where it was on Twitter that I, saw that, first saw it. And I saw it multiple times, the tablet story. But it also gives you a notion of who the voices are that they're listening to.
Who she's listening to. And she's one of the most decorated journalists covering foreign affairs in the United States in my lifetime. And she doesn't have that kind of awareness.
Well, I'm more curious about the New York Times.
Oh, yeah. By the way, Patrick Kingsley, that's his name. He is the Jerusalem bureau chief for the New York Times. And he doesn't know. He doesn't know when he goes on the
Daily.
Daily.
Called the Gaza's Notebook. I don't understand why there was nobody there who found that out.
And it just goes to show how effective the Israeli government has been at completely crafting the narrative for decades at this point.
Totally.
Because all of the sources for these traditional mainstream reporters, they're going back to those same people and they're seeing it kind of crumble in front of them. And it's like we are living in two different realities and the mainstream press is catching up, but they're many, many decades behind.
In a moment, we're going to talk to Jacob Sugarman, lifestyle editor at the Buenos Aires Herald and writer at The Nation, on the Argentinian presidential election. We'll be talking to him in just a moment. First, a couple of words from our sponsors. We're getting into that giving season. I think we're going to run something maybe next week as well. But a lot of times when you give a donation, you want to know where you can give and have it create the most impact. In 2007, a bunch of donors had that exact question. They sought out information from charities to help them answer that question, and they really didn't get much sort of hard data back from them. So they created something called GiveWell. GiveWell is an organization providing rigorous, transparent research about the best giving opportunities that they've found. GiveWell has sponsored us, I don't know, maybe going back years and years. I have found almost all of the charities that I donate to, I have found through GiveWell at one time or another. They have spent now over 15 years researching charitable organizations, and they only direct funding to a few of the highest impact opportunities they've found in global health and poverty alleviation. Over 100,000 donors have given GiveWell have used GiveWell, I should say, to donate more than $1 billion. Rigorous evidence suggests these donations will save over 150,000 lives and improve the lives of millions more. GiveWell wants as many donors as possible to make informed decisions about high impact giving. You can find all of their research and their recommendations on their site for free. You can make tax-deductible donations to their recommended funds or charities, and GiveWell does not take a single dime. Right now, GiveWell is highlighting 4 of their top charities. A couple are involving malaria, which is a huge problem. Some supplements to prevent vitamin deficiency. For me, I'm given to cash incentives for childhood vaccines, particularly in the sort of the wake of COVID. And, with frankly, for years you had aid organizations using that as a cover for spying and all sorts of things. This is really important. And plus, this is a twofer in my mind, because one, you're making sure that kids get their childhood vaccines. This is, across the globe. And two, you're also giving money to families directly with no other strings attached. And they have the ability to use that money in a way that they see as most effective for them. But GiveWell is a great organization. These cash incentives for routine child vaccines, $160 to vaccinate an infant. This funding provides cash transfers directly to these caregivers. So like I say, it's really a twofer. It gets kids vaccinated, and it provides funds for these families that they can invest and spend in any way that they that is most effective for them. GiveWell is great. One of the amazing things about it is you can go in and they literally have a vertical called Our Mistakes, where they have either failed to put up the data in a timely fashion, or they have assessed something incorrectly. You can go back and see their top charity funds that they've given all in the past. You can look at all their research. I mean, it really is an impressive website. If you have never donated through GiveWell before, you can have your donation matched up to $100 before the end of the year, or as long as the matching funds last. To claim your match, go to givewell.org, pick podcast, enter the Majority Report with Sam Seder at checkout. Make sure they know that you heard GiveWell from the Majority Report, and you will get your donation matched up to $100, assuming that there's there's still funds available, or it's before the end of the year. So that's givewell.org to donate or to find out more. We'll, of course, put the link in the podcast and YouTube and website descriptions. Also, another sponsor for the day. Literally had this stuff on my mind. If you're racking your brain to think of the right present for someone, you're never going to go wrong with giving the most comfortable sheets, clothing, and accessories that your friends and family have ever felt. And I am talking about Cozy Earth. I literally have 2 packages of socks on my bureau right now from Cozy Earth. Going to be giving them as Hanukkah gifts, and then I'll probably end up giving some as Christmas gifts. Because honestly, I have Cozy Earth sheets. They're incredibly soft. They're made of viscose from bamboo, so much more sustainable than other stuff. but they're also temperature regulating. They're great sheets. But I will tell you something about the socks are completely insane. Just incredibly comfortable. And I don't know how many colors they're in, but a bunch of different colors, and people love them. I keep giving them as gifts now, but it doesn't matter. The sheets come in 9 different sizes, colors, I should say. They have luxury pajamas. They have ultra comfortable joggers, which I also love my joggers. They got lounge socks, like I say, or premium bath towels. Cozy Earth, great place for gifts. And don't forget to check out their new cuddle blanket. Which apparently is a must-have luxury essential. I have not checked out the cuddle blanket yet.
I love a good throw.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more than that.
Oh.
It helps you cuddle. If you want the people on your list to feel better, sleep better, and smile when they think of you, you couldn't do better than to choose Cozy Earth as a gift. And here is my gift to you, folks. It is go to CozyEarth.com, enter my code Majority Report at checkout, save up to 40%. Wow. That's CozyEarth.com. Coupon code Majority Report, 2 words, CozyEarth.com. Coupon code Majority Report. Link will be in the podcast and YouTube description. Quick break, and we'll be talking to Jacob Sugarman, lifestyle editor at the Buenos Aires Herald. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report with Emma Vigeland. Joining us now, Jacob Sugarman, lifestyle editor at the Buenos Aires Herald and writer at The Nation magazine. Jacob, welcome back to the show. I know that you spoke with Emma, I guess it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. Emma, why don't you start in on this in terms of the Argentinian election? At that point, we didn't know the result, and now we do.
Well, we were more optimistic when we last spoke, Jacob, I guess, in late October. Just keep us up, or I guess update us on what happened after Milei underperformed in the first round of the elections, and there was hope potentially that the centrists would be able to take it over the finish line. And yet, no, the crazy Javier Milei will be the new leader of Argentina.
Right. So when we spoke in, I think it was in October, Emma, this was a few days after the general election. And I think it was either the next day or 2 days after our conversation, there was sort of a mass coalescing of the right-wing coalitions in Argentina around Milei. Patricia Bullrich, who was the Juntos por el Cambio candidate, came out and endorsed Milei formally. He also got an endorsement from Mauricio Macri, who is the former president of Argentina, also of the same kind of ostensibly center-right coalition, although I'm sure that a lot of people would take exception with the characterization of Juntos por el Cambio as center-right. I mean, if Milei weren't a candidate in this election cycle, it would be considered a pretty right-wing party, right-wing group. And basically, all sort of non-Peronist sectors of society ended up basically going to Milei in the runoff election that happened on Sunday, and that's how he ended up not only winning, but winning by more than 11%, which is a landslide.
Can you walk us through how much power the president has relative to, let's say, maybe the United States, and in his ability to impose his agenda? Because I mean, A, I don't have a good sense of that, but B, does the coalescing of those center-right or right-wing groups around Milei, is that an indication that there's going to be there's a similar dynamic to, let's say, Trump and the Republican Party? This is a warm body who's willing to sign off on our agenda. And so give us a sense of both those two questions.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always reluctant to draw direct comparisons between the United States and Argentina. I mean, they're just two radically different countries with different political makeups, but that's not that far off, truth be told. I think that Milei does not have a majority in Congress. He only has a handful of members from his coalition, which is called La Libertad Avanza, both in the Senate and in the Chamber of Deputies, which is like the House of Representatives for Argentina. But yeah, there are a large number of members from Juntos por el Cambio, and if they throw their weight behind him, which many of them will if they haven't already, there is reason to expect that he will be able to move forward with a legislative agenda. The president in Argentina has a fair amount of power. He can govern by what's called a DNU. I'm now blanking on the exact Spanish acronym for it, but it's like an executive order. There are limits to it, that would prevent him from eliminating taxes. He's called for a referendum on the legalization of abortion. He would need congressional support to go forward with that. So there are some limits there, but he has a fair amount of power. And if he has the support in Congress, which it appears he does right now, he will be able to govern, or at least I think that is a fair assumption now.
How many parties are in Congress?
Many.
Okay. Well, I mean, I just wanted to sort of establish that this is not essentially a duopoly. Right. I just want to establish there is an opportunity for him to sew together a coalition, and It explains in some respects why. Because it was sort of surprising that there was all of this coalescing around him, I would imagine, relative from the general election.
Yeah, I mean, what you saw within, Juntos por el Cambio is itself a very kind of interesting group. So to answer your question, there are a number of political parties within Argentina. A lot of them kind of work together as coalitions, as voting blocs. So even within Juntos por el Cambio, you'll have you have PRO, which is a conservative party. You have some more moderate kind of centrist parties, and together they kind of operate under the same banner of Juntos por el Cambio. As to why they coalesced around Milei, I think a lot of people really kind of cast an anti-Peronist vote. It's not, I think a better analog for this is what happened in Brazil when Bolsonaro won, where there was such a high level of anti-petismo, which is the PT, the kind of left party of Brazil, that was this was their vehicle, and they all hopped on board. And not unlike PT, there's some kind of basic things in common with the Peronist coalition. There's lots of charges of fraud. There's a lot of kind of conception that they are big spenders and using public funds for their own nefarious ends. And, there is truth and great exaggeration to that characterization.
But unlike Brazil, I would say, based on our last conversation, and we actually had a caller call in yesterday to speak about this, the left in Argentina appears to be anemic and has been for quite a while. I mean, before Bolsonaro, there was Lula, and now there's Lula again, obviously. And then, you can even look over at Boric and say, well, Chile's obviously their left is clearly more robust. But in Argentina, that hasn't really been the case, is my understanding. Why are those conditions the way that they are?
Well, it depends on how you want to look at the Peronists, which are this sort of chameleon-like coalition that can be sort of anywhere from center-right, which was the case under Menem at the beginning of the century, to more kind of conventionally center-left, which was the case under Nestor Kirchner and to an extent Cristina after him. I'm not sure I would describe it as anemic so much as it's subsumed within this sort of larger coalition. But they have, with the exception of the 4 years in which Mauricio Macri governed, have been in power for decades. And so as Argentina's economy has gone from bad to worse, there is a lot of rage at the kind of governing powers. And that is, the perception is, that is the left, that is the Peronists, that is, they've sort of changed their names constantly. This time around, it was Unión por la Patria. During the last election cycle, it was Frente de Todos. What happened in the previous administration, or the existing administration, the one that's soon to exit, Alberto Fernandez was sort of a hand-picked candidate by Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner. He was the chief of staff under her husband, Nestor. And he was kind of meant to be a kind of compromise candidate for sort of the more left wing of the Peronist coalition and the more moderate wing of the coalition. And what ended up happening was a presidency that was neither left wing nor center. It was sort of neither. And it's been, by all metrics, a highly dysfunctional, failed administration. Inflation has exploded. A lot of this wasn't entirely their fault. I mean, they got dealt a pandemic and a war in Ukraine and sort of a succession of horrific events, kind of a historic drought that completely decimated Argentina's exports and emptied out their reserves of dollars. But they've completely failed to contain the damage, and now people are looking to punish them. And Milei has appeared at just the right time.
What can you walk us through some of the policies that people anticipate that both A, he wants to implement, and B, he's going to be able to? I mean, it really seems like it's a bit of a black box as to what he's going to be able to do, because that's a function of the legislature, which it seems like they coalesce around him for a reason. I guess. I mean, so give us a sense of like what, aside from the fact that he seems to be a lunatic, what is it on a material basis that people are anticipating that he might do?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm kind of reluctant to make any predictions about what he can and can't achieve in office. I think the best way to understand Milei is, he is not a right-wing populist exactly in the tradition of Bolsonaro or Trump. I mean, they share some rhetorical style and flourishes. But Milei is really, kind of a throwback to 90s era kind of, I hate to use this term just because it's thrown around endlessly and, it sort of has been sapped of all meaning, but neoliberalism in South America, where, complete market freedoms and, cutting down the administrative state, as much as humanly possible. A sizable percentage of Argentina's workers are employed by a very large and ample state, and he has pledged to eliminate, 11 separate ministries, He claims that he's going to cut spending by 15% of GDP, eliminate, endless taxes, although it's not entirely clear which he's referring to sometimes. He's also promised to replace Argentina's public education system with a voucher system, although again, details are sparing about exactly what that looks like. He wants to end free public health care. What we've seen in recent weeks is that he shied away from, coming out and saying we're going to privatize Argentina's healthcare system, because I think that would have been electorally, a problem for him. But I'm not really sure that his plan basically doesn't ultimately result in that. I mean, if the idea is that it's no longer a free public service and you have to pay as you go, and Argentina's healthcare system has to compete with the private sector, you're basically handing it over to private companies. How much of that he's going to achieve, I don't know. We'll find out soon enough.
So we should say, when you're saying neoliberal, you're really talking like Mont Pelerin. This is like the pure stuff.
Well, he loves Milton Friedman, right? Yeah, he's praised Milton Friedman in the past, or espoused those kinds of economics.
He idolizes the Chicago boys. Hayek is one of his biggest influences. I think he's named his dogs after Austrian economists. I mean, this is where he comes from.
Oh,
but I'm kind of eager to make that distinction, because it's very easy to say like, Argentina now has this new Trump, and like this is something distinct.
There's more ideology. It seems here in many respects. How do people? When the idea of the Chicago boys coming back in, doesn't that where is the, I don't know, institutional, where is the national sort of memory of, is there no sort of visceral reaction to the idea of, Chicago libertarian, University of Chicago libertarians coming in, and what preceded that in terms of 30,000 people disappeared type of situation? Is that not what's going on with that?
I mean, these are all good questions. I'm of the mind that Argentina, in my experience living here and reporting from here, is extremely connected to that history, and has reckoned with it in ways, that I think other nations who have lived under dictatorships haven't. There are a couple of things to keep in mind. Milei has a lot of support among young voters. I'm talking voters who are 16 to 30, who didn't necessarily live through the crisis of 2001, and certainly weren't alive during the dictatorship from 1976 to 1983.
Young men, right? Was what you said to me, right?
Yeah, I mean, he has support amongst a lot of different sectors of society, so I don't want to just assign that group as the ones responsible for electing him. But I think that, people are fed up. And I understand it. You go to the supermarket, and from week to week, and sometimes day to day, you see the prices of these things soaring. Whether they truly believe that what Milei is offering is going to improve their material circumstances, I don't know. I can't tell you that. But I think they want to punish, the people in power, and it's, there seems to be a consensus that the Peronists have to go, and if that has to be Milei, then so be it.
Before, we end up having to wrap up with you, I just wanted to touch on some of the weirder elements of Milei as well. Is his first lady his sister?
He has said that he would make his first lady, that he would make his sister his first lady. He also came out a couple of nights before the election with a list of fake news, one of which is that he felt the need to clarify that he had not fucked his sister. Excuse me, I didn't mean to.
Thank you. Yeah, good to know.
He felt compelled to tell the public.
I think what you're looking for is made love.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So yeah, there's just endless weirdness there. I mean, I'm not immersed in it enough to say any of this with great confidence, but I can tell you what he has come out and said.
Yeah. What is that? Matt just said it's the libertarians and their weird desire to break certain laws for sexual purposes.
There is an overwhelming amount of discourse about pedophilia that lines both what Milei discusses, his vice president has brought up pedophilia at different stages.
There's a long time Dionysus libertarian streak that I think is there, but I want to get back to one more point about this election. Well, in terms of demographically, is Argentina a younger country? I mean, I wonder if 50 years ago, 50 years. Less than 50 years ago, the ushering in of a regime like this, like I say, 30,000 people disappeared. I mean, there was, and who knows the reverberations of something like that. I've never lived through anything like that. But for the sort of the societal memory to have waned enough so that somebody coming in sort of maybe ringing off a couple alarm bells. Is it a younger country? I mean, what?
It is a younger country. I don't have the exact demographic numbers in front of me, so I can't loathe to provide any kind of statistics, but it does skew young. I just, again, in what I have seen and witnessed, and I'm only one reporter, I'm disinclined to say that there is, a lack of memory going on in Argentina, or even a disintegration of memory. I really think it's a testament to how bad conditions are right now, that they are willing to overlook, these very alarming statements he has made about the junta, because they feel like there is no exit, or continuing, the path that the Peronists have laid out would just kind of continue their decline. I happen to think that they're gravely mistaken, and right. I think any number of economists would agree that the proposals that Milei has put forth are only going to hurt Argentina further. But it's something different. I think, as I told Emma in October, when people hear dollarization, I don't know if there's a firm understanding of exactly what that entails, what that means for their personal finances. I think there is a kind of misconception that if they are to start earning in dollars, that this would improve their standard of living. The problem is that Argentina doesn't have the reserves to back up that transition, so the exchange is going to be incredibly punishing, and it's just going to lead to horrible inflation. Mass poverty. There's already, poverty in excess of 40% that would climb. It's gonna be a bloodbath.
And just to be clear on that dynamic, had the Argentinian government had this huge reserve of U.S. dollars, they could circulate those instead of having to go and essentially buy all the dollars to make that type of conversion. And you don't want to be in that position of having to buy all those dollars if you're going to convert your economy, because people are going to charge you a higher rate than because all of a sudden there's a surge in demand.
Yeah.
All right. I just wanted to make that clear for folks who may not, sort of understand that dynamic of what the lack of reserves to convert. And who knows? Maybe there are people in the government who'll say you can't do that, but someone just IM'd us that Milei has cloned his dog 3 times, made a council of advisors
5 times,
cloned dogs,
5 times,
open to and has named them after Milton Friedman, Murray Rothbard, and Robert Lucas.
I stand
never
corrected.
heard of that one.
They weren't the Austrian economists, but they were.
I guess my point being that this may not be someone who is going to listen to, advice from, standard advisors, economic advisors.
Well, I mean, I think that's what's so scary about this is that he's an ideologue. He is not like Trump and Bolsonaro in this sense. Both of whom would pretty much pursue whatever policy. You could see it in Bolsonaro. I think, I don't want to cite recent Brazilian history that I don't have a firm grasp of, but I think I remember that during the pandemic, he was willing to, spend and hand out checks and keep people afloat. I don't know if someone like Milei would do that because he has his own set of beliefs, and I don't see a lot of compromise there.
Do you think this at the very least is the end of Peronism? I mean, is something new going to come out of this, or maybe it's a little bit early to tell?
Again, Peronism has been a presence in Argentine politics for, 60, 70 years. I think to call it the death knell of Peronism would be probably dangerous. It will come back in some shape or form. But what exactly that is, I don't know. And, as we see now, like all of these political coalitions are reformulating in different shapes and sizes. Juntos por el Cambio could merge with La Libertad Avanza. The Radicales, which are a more moderate party within Juntos por el Cambio, are up for grabs and could end up being part of a larger Peronist coalition. I don't know. But things are in flux right now.
Jacob Sugarman, lifestyle editor, Buenos Aires Herald, writer at The Nation magazine. Thanks so much for catching us up on this. It's fascinating and a little bit disturbing. I got to be honest with you, but that's going around these days. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. I'll talk to you guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.
All right. We're going to head in. Oh, no. Before we get to the fun half, I want to talk about this Eighth Circuit ruling. 3-judge panel of the Eighth Circuit. I don't think it goes en banc. I think this is something that's going to make it to the Supreme Court next. And the question is what speed? As you know, there is a thing called the Voting Rights Act. It still exists. It has been essentially chipped away at since starting in 2013. When I was in high school and in college, there was a guy at the Department of Justice who had been placed. I think it was the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. He had been placed there by Ronald Reagan, and this guy hated the Voting Rights Act. He kept sending memos to Reagan, don't sign the reauthorization of the Voting Rights Act. We need to get rid of this part. We need to get rid of that part. He was obsessed. Some people they have their thing. Mm-hmm. And for this guy, it was getting rid of the Voting Rights Act. And
John Bolton in Iran, but the Voting Rights Act in this situation.
Yeah. And cut to 2013, and that guy is the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and his name is John Roberts. And they begin to assault the Voting Rights Act. They started with Section 5, which was the preclearance issue. That is, there were, I think it was 18 counties, 14 states, somewhere around there, around the country, who had a really marked history of trying to disenfranchise voters based upon their race or their immigration status. Whether they were immigrants or, their ethnicity. And the Supreme Court, the Voting Rights Act basically said these places, because of their incredible history of doing this, need to get any changes in their voting pre-cleared by the DOJ.
Yeah.
And the DOJ's got to sign off it because we can't trust these people to do it. And of course, that was reversed in 2013. And Alabama, it was a case from Fulton County, I think it was in Alabama. And then it turns out that Alabama went ahead and just instituted these laws. As soon as that was gone, all these same places instituted laws that ended up disenfranchising people from voting. And at that time, Anthony Scalia said, the only reason why this was reauthorized by a Senate, it was like a 99-1, maybe 98-0 vote. I can't remember exactly, in 2007. He said was because those senators are afraid of being called racist.
Oh.
And so that vote doesn't count. And we can't do all these special giveaways to black people anymore, like the right to vote.
So he was in his judicial philosophy there, reading into the minds and hearts and the intent behind what the senators were voting on.
No, it was even going further. He was saying, like, they just were intimidated, so the vote doesn't count, basically.
Okay. But I would say
it was more like their emotional state.
Yeah, but that's not in the text of the Voting Rights Act, right?
No.
That this kind of just can go away. You can nix it if there's political pressure about racism being placed on senators?
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
okay.
That is not.
It's not in the Constitution.
No. And then subsequent to 2013, we have seen a further diminishment of the Voting Rights Act. The one thing that they've upheld to this so far is around redistricting, and and there is a mathematical formula, if it undermines. If redistricting is done in such a way that it undermines the political power of minorities, the Supreme Court has now stepped in. They had a case about Alabama, actually, I can't remember, 6 months ago, 3 months ago, 2 months ago, last week, I don't remember. But it was this year, I believe, where essentially, this has happened multiple times over the course of this year, where Alabama, they have something like 40% African-American population, and they have only there's only like one black person in a delegation of 6 or 7. These numbers
One majority black district.
Yes. And that was because essentially in redistricting, what they did is they tried to get as much of black people into one district, regardless of the shape of it. And that way they could, Alabama, turns out there's still a little racism there.
What?
Surprising. Exists all over the country, we should say. And so the Supreme Court said, no, you need to recreate districts so that there is a greater representation amongst your congressional delegation that reflects essentially the population makeup of your state. And one of the ways in which the Voting Rights Act has been for decades enforced. And you see this in a lot of other things too. We didn't say this is exclusive to the Voting Rights Act. In fact, when I go to these tort conferences, these lawyers are bringing cases very often that are a function of existing statutes. One of the ways that the Voting Rights Act has been enforced, and it was certainly contemplated I think it was in 1985 when the Judiciary Committee was, again, going over the reauthorization and the expansion of the Voting Rights Act, is that third parties can bring lawsuits. So let's say you're the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and you have a legal division that says, hey, wait a second, there's some type of racial disenfranchisement in the voting system. We're going to bring a case against this state or this county or this municipality. And that has been law of the land for decades now, until yesterday, when a 3-panel judge in the 8th Circuit, this is a 3-panel judge, is made up of one judge that was appointed by George W. Bush, one that was appointed by Donald Trump, and then there was a third judge who also appointed by George W. Bush, but he said, what are we doing here? In fact, let me read his dissent. It is, or I will read a segment of his dissent, which goes something like this. This is Chief Judge Smith in dissent. Admittedly, the court has never directly addressed the existence of a private right of action under Section 2. However, it has repeatedly considered such cases, held that private rights of action exist under other sections of the Voting Rights Act, and concluded in other voting rights cases that a private right of action exists under Section 2. Until the court rules or Congress amends the statute, I would follow existing precedent that permits citizens or organizations of citizens a judicial remedy. Rights so foundational to self-government and citizenship should not depend solely on the discretion or availability of the government's agents for protection. In other words, the right to vote, to the extent that it's protected by the Voting Rights Act, is so fundamental that we shouldn't have to rely on either, the funding levels of the Department of Justice or the political inclinations of the people at the Department of Justice to protect those voting rights. That's basically what he's saying. Resolution of whether Section 2 affords private plaintiffs the ability to challenge state action is best left to the Supreme Court in the first instance. In other words, the Supreme Court's already ruled on this.
Yep.
Why are we weighing in on this? Now, we should say, it turns out Chief Judge Smith is African-American, and of course, the right wing will believe that he should recuse himself.
Obviously.
Because he's clearly just interested in having the right to vote himself.
Like that, I believe, Mexican-American judge that was supposed to rule on Trump's border policies, and Trump said, you're going to be biased. Only white men can rule on the laws of the land here.
That's right.
I just want to read this excerpt. Adam Sewer of The Atlantic. I don't normally read The Atlantic, but I thought this was a good piece on this ruling. Said this: the majority's reasoning is simple, if absurd, although acknowledging that Congress had, quote, clearly intended all along to allow private enforcement. It argues that the text does not say so explicitly, therefore Congress's intentions, Supreme Court precedent, and decades of practice are irrelevant. The fact that this would allow lawmakers to discriminate against their black constituents without interference from pesky civil rights groups is an innocent coincidence. This interpretation of the law was teed up for the judges by Justices Neil Gorsuch and Clarence Thomas in another 2021 voting rights case in which the conservative-dominated High Court weakened prohibitions against voting discrimination. But what I find just so frustrating about this entire, issue in the chipping away of the Voting Rights Act is you highlighted at the start how absurd Scalia's logic was in gutting Section 5. Now we're looking at Section 2 here. And on one end, you have conservatives saying, well, I read into the hearts and minds of the senators and found that they were just too scared to be called racists. And so I'm going to make that assessment completely subjectively. And then here, there's clear text, or not text, I should say, but historical documentation of the intent. Congress had, quote, clearly intended all along to allow private enforcement, aka allowing private citizens and groups to sue if there are civil rights violations. And yet, because it's not explicitly in the text, they're going to say it should be overturned. And so it's like, which one is it? I know that hypocrisy is not the most successful way to attack Republicans because they'll do whatever they want to achieve power. I get it. But that is such brazen, absolute, working backwards from one's conclusion that I had to just make that point.
And the other thing to keep in mind here is, again, the idea that there has to be an affirmative right for third parties to uphold what is a civil law in this country. This is not a controversial concept. This is not something like the idea that we don't have the right to sue based upon existing laws is absurd. And there are certain instances where statutes explicitly say there is no third party right to this because it might complicate things. But generally, the default position is that, yes, in in many instances, particularly in the context of like civil law, there can be suits associated with this. I mean, the reason why people can sue, let's say, a drug manufacturer or a polluter is because of statutes that are set up, environmental protections or consumer protections or whatnot. So it's pretty.
But you don't have
amazing.
rights as a citizen if you're a person that's been wronged by the state. You only have rights in, like, I guess, the private sector, according to this. I mean, that if you have your, and even that, I understand that's threadbare as well. But there should be, like, in terms of recourse, there's nothing more egregious than the government curtailing your right to vote. And this circuit court is trying to just completely cut the legs out from under anybody who's trying to challenge those things.
We will, see if this heads to the Supreme Court. I would imagine it's going to, and I would imagine relatively quickly. That Alabama case they just did with Section 2 was I guess in June. So, I can't even tell you what month this is, right?
Yeah, but to put a finer point on it here, like, they are trying to ensure that the only cases that challenge voting laws in this country are right wing, because they're not curtailing their ability to, like, right wing groups' ability, I would say, to fund legal challenges to voting rights in this country. Just people that have been wronged under the Voting Rights Act. These kinds of lawsuits can still go forward.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm not sure it's fully analogous, because one is like it's saying, is this law constitutional? The other is saying to have an action under the context of a statute. But nevertheless, when you talk about precedent, you talk about the way that things have worked in this country, this is a real outlier. But again, as Sir War says, there are members of the Supreme Court who are very hostile to the Voting Rights Act and have been leaving, like, little breadcrumbs around as to, how you might go about further undercutting these laws. So we shall see.
Yeah, even in that Alabama case where they kind of ruled in the right way, they still left the door open.
Folks, that ends our free half of the program. We've gone long. Excuse me. That was we've got construction right outside the building now. We've gone long, like almost every day going into Thanksgiving. I should just say that Emmett's going to be here tomorrow. I'm not exactly hitting the road yet, but my cat is having a procedure. So
lots of pet problems.
There's a lot of pet drama around this office these days. I don't know what's what's happening in the
it might have been solved for me. We were able to find someone to take care of the puppies. So
well, we'll see. But nevertheless, we will have a show on Friday, which will be a compilation of a couple of interviews that we think will interest you. Emma will be here tomorrow live, and obviously we'll be back on Monday. But for those of you who are free show listeners, I wish you a happy Thanksgiving. Should be a really enjoyable time. There's going to be a lot of fights this year.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
There's going to be a lot of fights this year, people's Thanksgivings. I can tell you that right now.
At yours, you ready?
Oh, at mine?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a peacemaker.
Interesting.
And for the first 60 seconds. And then I just screw it.
I'm like, I don't buy it.
I see the fight breaking out and I'm like, no, come on, everybody. And then all of a sudden I jump from the top rope.
Oh, so you're an instigator and then you come
No,
in.
I'm not an instigator.
Oh, the opposite.
That's my point. I need to be dragged in. But the problem is once I get dragged in, it's over. Oh, also I should say this. Tonight at 8 p.m., I am going to be on, I had a sheet of paper that was going to, yeah, I know it. I don't have the link, but it's Movie Night Extravaganza at 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to be on, and the movie that we're talking about is Real Life by Albert Brooks. And also maybe a little bit about his documentary. Albert Brooks was, to the extent that I did have a career making comedy, Albert Brooks was like a big influence on me. And in fact, I will maybe tell the story tonight about, I'm just going to say, I'll just say the words Albert Brooks, New Yorker, and famous New Yorker writer, theater critic, John Lahr. And I was involved in all of that. So.
Okay.
Oh, it's like a tease. I don't know, maybe that means nothing to anybody. But
I mean, the Albert Brooks part, yes.
Sounds like Emma talking about
Yeah.
Real Housewives.
The second string running backs or something.
That's better than Real Housewives.
Yeah, it's pretty deep.
I feel more shame
It's a
about
deep
that,
cut,
the
deep
Housewives
cut.
stuff.
But just a reminder, you can support this program by becoming a member. When you do, you not only get the free show free of commercials, although we did include our Sunset Lake Sabbath ad today because they're having such a big sale. I didn't want you folks to miss out. But you also get the fun half, and you get every now and then we get our act together and we do stuff, other bonuses for members. You can IM the show if you're a member. The app is free for everybody, but also if you look into your member post on the app, if you look into your member post on the website, or if you check your email today, it says from Jack at the AM Quickie because I didn't know how to fix the email blast, but I've figured that out. And you will see a 10% discount coupon link to our merch. And the merch is out of control, folks. Whoopsie.
Yes, we got Whoopsie. We got the days of the week. We got, Fun Day Monday, Newsday Tuesday, Hump Day, and Majority Report. Casual Friday. Very
Emma.
fun.
Whoopsie.
Yes.
It's Tim Pool down in the cave.
Oh, yeah. You put a little... gosh, you're revealing that we have that sound machine. Okay. The slow one.
Whoopsie. Emma, what's happening on ESPN?
Oh, well, Bradley and I went into week 11 in the NFL. Record number of quarterback injuries this year. Season-ending injuries to Joe Burrow and Deshaun Watson. Brandon Staley is a clown, should be fired. Why I don't think Russell Wilson is, quote, fixed. More and more, youtube.com/ESPN show.
Is that what it sounded like when I was talking about John Lahr and the New Yorker? Because I didn't understand anything you just said.
There you go. I mean, there you go.
Absolutely 100% nothing.
Well, we're teaching each other different languages. It's just,
Yeah, I don't think we're actually teaching. We're just both sort of just bouncing.
Okay,
confounding each other.
Yeah, talking at each other.
Tonight on Left Reckoning, Nick Turse, journalist of The Intercept, also author of a really good book on Vietnam, Kill Everything That Moves, or Anything That Moves, talking about the drone war and what it takes to get the Pentagon to admit that it killed somebody, a civilian, and what it actually does after it makes that sort of admission. Check that out tonight, patreon.com/leftreckoning.
We'll take phone calls in a moment. See you in the fun half. 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now. And I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow. What? What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second.
The Majority Report.
Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.
What is up, everyone?
Nomi Key.
You did it. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false.
No, I'm sorry. Women's...
Stop talking for a second and let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7A?
Yes.
Hi, it's me. Is this?
Yes.
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello, is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? No sound. Every single freaking day. What's on your mind?
Sports.
We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
I'm gonna go start watching.
Libertarians. They're so stupid, though.
Common sense says, of course.
Gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him.
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge Matt.
I'm positively quivering.
I believe 96, I want to say.
857-210-35. 501. 1/2. 3/8.
9/11, for instance.
$3,400. $1,900.
5, 4, $3 trillion sold. It's a zero-sum game.
Actually, you're making me think less of it.
But let me say this. Poop.
You call it satire. Sam goes, it's satire.
On top of it all,
Yeah.
my favorite part about you is just like every day, all day, like everything you do.
Without a doubt. Hey, buddy, we see you. All right, folks.
It's just the week being weeded out, obviously.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out.